The trustees' regular meeting for January 20th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are missing a couple people. So we're going to have to make a motion for a secretary, clerk, whatever we call them.
I move to nominate Treasurer Brown as acting secretary for tonight's meeting.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's it. Treasurer Brown is the secretary. Can you do a roll call, please?
Supervisor File,
Here.
Treasurer Brown here, Trustee Hayward,
Here.
Trustee Morocco,
Here.
Trustee Tenor,
Here.
Clerk Newbeck, and Trustee Alamathu were scheduled to be out of town. We have a quorum.
Okay, great. All right, can I get a motion for the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Board and public announcements. We have a new microphone, just for those that are returning veterans. It's now in the middle, so the public will come up to this here instead of over to the podium. Okay? But public comments and board comments are designed to give the audience a chance to make a statement containing any information that is not on the agenda. You'll have 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you're at 4, so you can wrap things up if you need to. So we'll start off by, first of all, does anyone in the audience have any public announcements they would like to make? No? Okay. Anybody online have a public announcement they would like to make? Nope. Okay, so I'll close public announcements and bring it up to the board. Does anybody on the board have a public announcement they would like to make? Or announcement? Nope. You're way down there by yourself.
I know.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to public comments. Again, this is for anything that you would like to bring up that is not specific to the agenda. So if anybody in the public would like to come up, same rules apply. Anybody? No? Okay. Anybody online? Any items that are not on the agenda? Nope. Okay. Anybody at the board? Nope. Okay. We'll move on to G, which is a public hearing. There aren't any. Presentation reports. There aren't any. Carryover items. There aren't any. We have the agenda. The consent agenda. Request to approve the Board of Trustees' regular meeting minutes of January 6, 2026. Request to ratify the January 13th, 2026 check run, including ACH for $381,891.95. Ratify the January 2nd, 2026 payroll for $352,001.98. And the November 2025 EFT ACH wire activity of $538,299.33. And a request to approve recognition as a nonprofit 501c3 organization, the Clarkston Wrestling Club. And I think that's it. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Nope. Okay. Jumping over to K, items removed from the consent agenda. There weren't any. Regular business. First on the regular business is L1. This is a request to approve the second reading of the cost recovery ordinance and adopt resolution to approve the fee schedule. The board will recall that in the past, it passed the first reading of the Independence Township cost recovery ordinance on January 6, 2026. The ordinance is now presented to the board for second reading. The purpose of this cost recovery ordinance is to authorize the Township Fire Department to recover reasonable and actual costs for fire department services and to establish the types of chargeable responses, billing collection procedures, exemptions, appeals, administrative rules needed to ensure transparency, fairness, and adequate funding for the operation. And we have this is Fire Chief Boucher.
Good evening, everybody. Again, just I guess to repeat what the supervisor just said, this is the second reading of the cost recovery ordinance that I presented to you at the last board meeting that you approved to come forward to the second reading, which is obviously tonight. There was no changes that evening from the board suggested to the ordinance, so there's been no alterations or any changes. The ordinance remains the same as what was presented 2 weeks ago. And I'm here to, I guess, answer any questions or any additional things you might have regarding that ordinance first. And then I can get into a small presentation with regards to the proposed fee schedule, and I can show you some examples how that might look. But that will be a separate board resolution for the adopted fee schedule. But with that, if there's any questions I can field on the cost recovery ordinance part first.
Let's start with the audience. Anybody in the audience have any? No? Anybody online? No? Okay, let's bring it up to the board. Anybody on the board have any questions?
I'm gonna wait for the presentation.
Okay. All right, so at this point, let's bring it to the presentation, please.
Okay. All this information on this slide for the fee schedule was in your packet. But again, it's bullet point number 1. It's the actual and reasonable costs that we're going to charge on these particular cost recoveries for our employee costs. It's going to be actually what that employee makes at that particular time as hourly wage, he or she's hourly wage, and their benefits as it's explained. So that's why we didn't lock in any particular amount for the employees, because it will change as every time their wages go up, benefits change. So when the actual bill happens, that's the amount we'll take, is what they're currently making at that point in time. The equipment hourly rate was derived through looking at 12 different fire departments in Oakland County that are well-versed in cost recovery. We kind of took all their numbers and we created an average for ourselves, so we are within that average. We're not too high, we're not too low, and that's how we established those particular costs for those trucks per hour if they're used on runs. So that's how that scale was developed. Contracted services and materials. For instance, and I gave this example last meeting, if we were to go on a hazardous materials spill, let's say on I-75, and we, the fire department, would have to call an environmental cleanup company to come mitigate, pick up the hazardous materials, dispose of it properly. We don't want to take on that bill ourselves as the fire department or the community. We want the ability with this cost recovery to have that bill paid by the owner of the truck, owner of the company, owner of the chemicals, whatever it may be. So that's why that piece is in there. And then the last bullet point is essentially a catch-all on any costs that are incurred with all those individual items that are on there. Questions on that before I go on the next slide? So I put together just some simple slides to kind of give you a feel for what cost recovery might look like on a utility standby. So I put up their total time on scene by the fire department was 2 hours. We don't bill for the first hour with utility companies. That by law, they can't be charged for that first hour, only if it goes after. So this bill demonstrates us being, let's say, on a wire's down after a storm, they're laying on the ground in somebody's front yard, and we have to send a fire engine. That's the 405 per hour, and then 2 firefighters on that engine. So we would bill that 1 hour, because we were on scene a total of 2, the first hour being free. The total cost that we would try to do a cost recovery for would be that $513.34. Again, the hourly wage for the firefighters is whatever they're making at that given time, along with their benefits and fringe benefits built into it. That's just a typical scenario to look at. We talked about the lift assists to nursing care facilities last time. Same thing, we would send one rescue truck, which is our ambulance truck. That's $167.50 per hour, and 2 firefighter paramedics at their current rates. So that total build would be for $275.84 to the healthcare facility, not to that resident that we did the lift assist on. And again, these are going to these facilities that provide nursing care. That's why these residents are there, to get care and nursing care, not independent living. So in those situations, if we so choose, we could bill to try to recoup some of our time on these non-emergency runs. And I should have prefaced that on this lift assist, this is a typical lift assist where the patient is not emergent. They just maybe need to be moved from point A to point B, from their bed to their wheelchair, from their wheelchair to bed, from the toilet to their wheelchair. And a nursing home facility is not doing, they're just not doing it. And they're using us to come over there to do those functions. And as I spoke last meeting, this is not a revenue grab of any kind. This is in our great hope that this deters those facilities from using the fire department for these functions. We want to be available for the 911 emergent calls to the community rather than being tied up on these type of runs. So, but if we are and we can't deter it, then we're going to grab some revenue back, cover our costs. It's just a reasonable coverage of our costs to deal with the situation. This would be back to my example of a hazardous materials on I-75. I use a tanker truck broke down. He's on the side of the road. Product is leaking out of his tanker onto the roadway, shoulder, and grass. A typical response from our department would be a fire engine, a rescue truck, command, and a heavy rescue to the scene to mitigate it. We would use absorbent materials initially to try to absorb and control the leak or the chemical so it doesn't go down storm drains. The next part of that would be calling a hazardous materials or environmental cleanup company to come out and actually pick up the product and dispose of the product properly. And then we stay on scene during the whole time. A typical scene like this would easily go 3 hours. So this gives you a scenario of what resources will be out there. The next slide kind of breaks down. Next slide breaks down the actual cost of each item for a 3-hour time period. So the one fire engine at $4.05 an hour times 3, that's for all those amounts. So everything's by 3 hours, and you can kind of read it all the way down the line. So in a typical run like that, we could incur those costs, and we would then cost recover. We may choose to cost recover for that amount. So it kind of just gives you 3 examples that we would, typically use. And then again, my recommendation to adopt the fire department cost recovery ordinance, approve future fee schedules by board resolution. So again, the fee schedule set tonight by resolution is in place if you do make it a resolution, accept it tonight. But then any changes to that resolution or those fees in the future, I should say, would be by board resolution all the time. So if we need to increase them, I would have to come back to the board and present that. You would have to agree to those increases. And again, this is really to ensure fairness, transparency, and fiscal responsibility. And at the end of the day, it's to protect the taxpayers and the community and our fire department using our resources for what we're really supposed to be using for, 911 calls by the community, so on and so forth. Questions?
Thanks, Chief. Appreciated your presentation last week as well. Based upon what you know historically, like picking a year or two ago, have you calculated what this would mean in terms of revenue for the fire department?
Yeah, I just took a simple number of, we had approximately 768 lift assists over the last 3 years. Each year, it's going up quite a bit, so if you just take, today I was playing with some numbers, if you took the 700, if I just conservatively took 700 times the $265, you're somewhere in that $180,000 range over the last 3 years that we would have recouped for some of those costs on those runs, which again, we really shouldn't be running on when those facilities have the capabilities. And if they don't have the capabilities, they should have the capabilities. That's what they're in business for, to handle those patients and take care of them. They're the ones that are supposed to be lifting them up, putting them back in bed, and so on and so forth. We've gone out there. We've never denied one of those calls up to this point. But we know it's getting worse, and that's why we want to try to put this into place to kind of get some sort of control.
I have two
Yes,
questions. One is notification of these facilities that just, obviously you can't notify somebody on a hazardous, but you obviously have a list of repeat facilities that, that are continuing to call
Correct.
for this kind of, for the lift service.
Yep.
Do you have plan to notify them?
Yep.
And is there going to be a grace period?
Yes.
Okay.
So yes to all that.
Okay.
So the plan is, if all this does go through, is to develop a letter that provides that grace period and to explain to each one of these facilities what we intend to do in the future and kind of lay that out. We'll set a date, or whatever that date's going to be, after the letters get out, so that they're well in advance, they know that this is coming. Our phone number will be on there. They're welcome to call us and discuss it, but definitely a grace period. We're not going to go into it and just all of a sudden go cold turkey on them and hit them with it. So
Okay, thank you.
we want to be informative. We want to work with our partners, but that's how we should do it.
I didn't think you would do that, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it at the fire department. That's how we need to do it.
Any other-
Just a quick
Trustee Marshall?
question. Dave, on, Chief, so with revenue coming in, that's going back into the fire department fund? Is there any other, besides the millage, are you funded in any other way?
Well, we get revenue from our EMS transport billing, so that would be our other large piece of revenue that comes in. Roughly, I think this year we were somewhere around $1.2 million in revenue that came back to the fire department for the transport services to hospitals by our
Okay, so that's on
ambulances.
top of it. And then how does that get, just, like, how does that get tracked? This, is it part of your annual report, or is it, because you've got, you budget, obviously, now you're getting more than the budget. How do you guys disperse these fees, or how does that get tracked?
Are you talking about the EMS fees that we
Well, I
get?
think it would be almost the same as what these fees would be. These are fees outside the millage that you're recovering fees, right? So
Right.
then are they allocated for something specific? Are they, what happens to that $1 million? Is it just rolled in?
Yep, it comes right back into our fire fund, gets dispersed, through our operating budget and our CIP, however we build our budget year in and year out. These fees, I would say, would just almost replicate the same thing as our EMS fees. They're just gonna come into the fire fund and be redistributed to run the fire department moving forward.
And does the fire fund have a, for better lack of a word, a slush fund? Does the fire department operate with a balance?
They have two funds. They have a CIP fund and, well, the equivalent of our general fund.
Okay.
So the money will come into the general fund, their general fund, and it's used to offset the checks they wrote and the cost they did to incur these runs. So, I mean, that's where it comes out to. Anything that is in excess of, which would be most likely not, but most likely it'd be less because it's also going to go through the insurance. Insurance have caps on how much they'll pay and everything else. They don't really care what our costs are. But the shortfall would also come out. So let's say they did a run for $250 and we're billing the insurance company. The insurance company says, nope, we only pay $150 on that. Nope, that's all we're going to get. We're not balance billing anybody else, so we lost $100. So that money in and out is designed to cover that within the general fund. At the end of the year, if there's more excess revenue, if there's revenue in the general fund, then it does carry over to the next year. In the budget, it does show the projected revenues as well. So the budget doesn't only deal with expenses, the top part shows revenue, so you would have
But
saw
you're
that in the,
anticipating that $1 million
Yes.
a year because we get it every
it's consistent enough, yeah.
year. And that's why I'm kind of was just
Yeah.
trying to understand, like, okay, so but we don't need this, we can operate without the additional revenue, right, when you do the budget? Or do you count on the additional revenue
We count on the additional revenue.
to
Yeah.
function, to
It's-
balance
it's-
out?
Yeah, it's like a normal cash flow, right? You got the money coming in, then we're offsetting all the expenses, and whatever's left, like anybody else does a budget, that's how much you get to keep in your
Well, so I
savings
was trying to
account.
figure out how much additional was coming in
Yeah.
from outside sources,
Yeah.
and
The EMS revenue is the biggest piece outside of the millage. And then the cost recovery that's going to be, there's not much to
well,
that.
hopefully minimal,
Right.
if it works.
Exactly. So
Right.
we're not even counting on that. It's just more of a protection for the community, especially in the bigger stuff like the hazmat spills, where those bills are very large and we don't want to incur those and pay them ourselves.
Treasurer Brown.
Good, those are good questions, Sam. Part of the answer to that too, I think, is that if we didn't have a fund balance, we'd be in big trouble and the board would know it, because if you have a negative fund balance, you have to have the state requires you to go through a process to how you're gonna deal with a negative fund balance. And the board's position is, I think the board recommends a 20% fund balance in any of our funds. And we tend to be a little bit better than that. I think we're fiscally responsible, a little bit better than that. And that equates to, a few months is where that would be operating out of. So certainly the board would know pretty quickly if we were gonna have a negative fund balance on any of our funds. I'm sorry, one other thing. And so relative to how this is treated, it does, if you look at the financials, the revenues coming in, taxes or fees, really doesn't look any different. They're just on a different line, almost in the same section. And so it's, revenues, it wouldn't be any different than you for your revenues for a building project or a development project. They're up there in your income part, and then you come down to your bottom
I
line.
wasn't sure
These are
that
the
we
same
were
way,
counting
yeah.
them,
Yep.
Yeah, no, we count all of it. We do projections on everything, like, if we go to the Parks and Rec, we would say, okay, we expect this program based on the last couple of years. Part of the conversation I would have had with Lisa is, is this a flat, trending up, trending down, what are we thinking? And that revenue definitely goes into that whole part, because if there's a shortfall, like in parks, there's almost always a shortfall, then that delta comes out of the general fund, and that's reflected in the budget too, as a deficit coming out, as a transfer over to the parks. So it's all reflected in there, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna bring it back to the audience, see if there's anything on the audience. Anybody have any questions, comments? No? Okay, online? No? Okay, close comments? Can I get first thing would be a motion to approve the second reading?
I move to approve the second reading of the Independence Township Cost Recovery Ordinance as presented and authorize the township clerk to publish same in accordance with state law.
Second.
Okay, I was gonna say Madam Secretary, but Mr. Secretary, can I please get a roll call?
Treasurer Brown, yes. Trustee Hayward,
Yes.
trustee Morocco,
yes.
trustee Tedder,
Yes.
supervisor File.
Yes. Okay. All that passed. Second motion is to approve the resolution approving the fee schedule. Can I get a motion for that, please?
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-001 to approve the cost recovery ordinance fee schedule and authorize the township clerk to certify and file same.
Second.
Can I get a roll call, please? Mr. Treasurer?
Trustee Hayward,
Yes.
trustee Morocco,
Yes.
trustee Tedder,
Yes.
supervisor File,
Yes.
treasurer Brown, yes.
All right,
Motion carries.
motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, next on the agenda is L2, L2 is the request to approve new job descriptions for the planning, building, zoning department. This is really more of the kind of a housekeeping cleanup. I know it's coming from our building director, but this goes back to the consolidation of the planning and building department. And so in order to make those things line up, we had to consolidate the job descriptions. So with that,
Good evening, everybody. So it is a formality to look at these job descriptions. Things have changed, oversight has changed, responsibilities have changed slightly in some of the roles, including my own. So we're presenting these 4 job descriptions for your approval. Also has to do with the adoption of the rental ordinance last month as well. So when we're looking at code enforcement, some of the things that the new code enforcement manager job description is going to be responsible for is oversight of the rental ordinance officers. We're going to start with 1, but it possibly grow to more than 1. So my description as the building official really didn't change a lot. I highlighted everything in red to try to distinguish from the original job description. If you have any questions in relation to any of the job descriptions, we'll take questions at this time.
yeah, so let me just interject here for a second. Since each job description requires its own vote and a motion, let's just take them one at a time and go
Okay.
through it if that's okay with the board. Okay. So as you pointed out, the first one was, if we look at it, I think you.
Job title, building official.
Not many changes.
Director.
How many changes there? Let me bring it to the audience. Anybody in the audience in attendance have any questions about the job description as defined for the building planning zoning director's office? No? Anybody online? No? Okay, I'll bring it up to the board. Anybody, any board member? No? All right, can I get a motion to approve the job description then, please?
A motion to approve the job description for the building planning zoning director official as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, next one on there, Director Moran, is going to be the deputy building director in office, official, sorry.
I move to approve the job description for the deputy building director / official as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have the job description for the building department manager.
This one I have questions about.
Okay,
And really, I'm just trying to understand this new structure with the apartment rentals and everything, and with you taking over planning. So this person is going to oversee the enforcement people, right? So are we talking about the building official? Is that this one where he's going to oversee the code enforcement guys?
No, that would be the last job description. We're on the 3rd job description, which is the building department manager. That's Kate's position.
The employee of the year?
yeah.
Yes,
I just want to throw that in there. Congratulations to her. I just found out about that today.
well deserved.
It's a very subtle segue into that, but, okay, I'm more interested in the next one. I know
Okay.
what Kate does. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I'll move to approve the job description for the building department manager as presented.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Job description of the code enforcement manager. Trustee Morocco.
Yeah, this one I know with building up the new code enforcement, you're gonna need, this person's gonna oversee the people who go out in the field and do the inspections, right?
For the
And would
rental
also-
ordinance. For the oversight of the
Right,
rental
rental
ordinance.
And that, I don't have a good way of saying it, so I'm just gonna throw out a question and see how it lands. But as far as with the planning department going, and I know that we're, using Carl and Wortman to do the planning, and there's been some discussion of getting a planning administrator to start learning some of that end of it. Is that this position and that position, are those two that could mingle together, or would that be a totally different?
Totally separate.
So, yeah.
There'd be another separate person that would do the other one?
Yep. So
Okay.
there's going to be subsequent job descriptions for the new hires, for the rental administrator, the rental inspector, and eventually a zoning administrator to fill the day-to-day needs of the planning aspect of the department. So
Okay.
that's a different position
Altogether, they wouldn't be
Correct.
shared, or there's no, it'd be,
Correct.
this job would require, would have enough that it wouldn't need to be shared with another administrative thing in your department, I guess.
Their plate would be full as it's defined
That's
by
what I was
this.
trying to-
Yeah,
right.
without having to try to wear two
And I
hats.
say it because I'm more thinking of the other side of
Yeah,
the planning end, that I know that that's a question of how to fill that position and fill their time. So
That's
that's why I was just
forthcoming.
asking if this would be a potential for crossover, but if not, that's fine. This is, all of this is self-funded by the building department's fees, right? This-
Correct.
No amendments to anything, or no funding needed for these new positions?
No, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
okay. Any other questions up here, board? Okay, in the audience, kind of skipped over that a little bit, but, no? Online? Nope, all right, can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve the job description for the code enforcement manager as presented.
All those in, oops, somebody
Support.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. The next item on there is 3, request to appoint board and committee members to the safety path. This one is to go through, there's 3 appointments here. The first one is to reappoint Deborah. And then also, the second one is to reappoint Charles Baxter. And Deborah, are you here? No? Okay, I didn't think so. I know I just butchered her name, that's why I didn't say the last name. How do you say it? Does anybody know?
Froelich?
Froelich?
Yeah.
Froelich? Okay, Froelich.
Froelich.
So I apologize, Deborah, for that. And Charles Baxter, and then appoint Rob Cole. In there, you should all have the applications. 2 of them are reappointments, one is a new appointee. I can say that all of them, I'll definitely go back and say the reappointments of Deborah and Charles. It's kind of a given, they've been there, they've been active, they want to participate. The appointment for Rob Cole is a new member. He actually showed up at one of the safety paths, and because they're public, and so he showed up, and he was kind of instrumental in getting the safety path to look at repairing a section of the safety path over on M15, brought to attention, and has helped out in that regard. And since then, I think when, for those of us that were there, we had to remind him that he wasn't on the committee. He was very engaged and very active, and he wanted to vote and everything else, so this is a person that really wants to do this. So that's why that person got nominated. Any questions from the audience? Any questions online? Nope. Any questions for everybody on the board?
I don't have questions, but I will just make a comment regarding all 3 for the 2 reappointments, and I'm on the Safety Path Committee as well. And I know Deb does a great job as the chair. She's done a wonderful job. She's very engaged, as well as Charles, who I believe is here tonight. And I was there when Rob was there, and he was participating like he was on the board. So I think they're all great addition, or he's a great addition to the committee, and both the reappointments, I certainly stand behind, so.
Okay. Anyone else? Nope. All right. Can I get a motion to reappoint Deborah Froelich?
I move to reappoint Deborah Froelich as Township Resident Member to the Safety Path Advisory Committee for a 2-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2027.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion to reappoint Charles Baxter?
I move to reappoint Charles Baxter as Township Resident Member to the Safety Path Advisory Committee for a 2-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2027.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And can I get a motion to appoint Rob Cole?
I move to appoint Rob Cole as Township Resident Member to the Safety Path Advisory Committee for a 2-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2027.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good deal. All right, next on the agenda is line item 4, request to appoint board and committee members to the Video Center Administrative Board. This would include, this is ITV. This is looking to appoint John Doolin as the township resident member. John filled out the application. I think we're all pretty familiar with John. There he is, John. And we all know he likes to be engaged in everything, which is fantastic because that's a rare thing in this community sometimes. So I appreciate the application. Any questions?
Was John the only applicant?
Yes.
Great.
I didn't want him to feel, no, there was thousands, and he
After an
rose to the
exhaustive
top.
Well,
Let me just
I
say
know
that no
why you're
matter what
asking.
there was, he rose to the
No
top.
application. I think he was asking because there are no applications to review. That was
Yeah.
maybe the spirit of that.
Yeah.
But we're very
Maybe.
happy to have John on the board.
Okay.
Maybe that was the spirit.
It was not, Sam was thinking a whole nother angle.
Okay.
They were on a previous package, so I did, I know that they were on
Oh,
a
right.
previous package from last, that we had to alter,
Okay.
but
Any questions or comments from the audience? Any questions, comments online? Anything from the board?
I work with John on the DDA. He's very active, and I do appreciate him even becoming more active and taking more of his time away from his family to work for the township. So I'll make a motion to appoint John Doolin as the township resident member to the Video Center Administrative Board for a 3-year term scheduled to expire on August 20th, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, John. Don't go anywhere. The next item is for the appointments to the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority. This oversees any improvements through the Dixie corridor. We have a reappointment for John, who we just met, and the reappointment for Gus. I don't see Gus here, but both of these individuals, I serve on that board as well, and both of these individuals have been very engaged, and I would encourage that we reappoint both of them. Any questions from the audience? No? Online? Board?
I will concur. I sit with both of these guys on the DDA. They've both been very active and an asset to the community, getting it off the ground. So I will move to reappoint John Doolin to the Downtown Development Authority for a 3-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2028.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Can I get one for Gus, please?
I'd also like to make a motion to reappoint Gus Atuna to the Downtown Development Authority for a 3-year term scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2028.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? John, are you married? I am. Apologize to your wife for me, please, but congratulations and thank you. Or lucky, I don't know which one it is. Next item on here is L6, and that's a request to approve the bylaws amendments for the Residential Open Space Advisory Committee. There is 5 motions to be considered. This is being brought forward by trustee Morocco and trustee Tedder. And given its length and everything else, I'm going to turn it over to whichever one of you wants to speak towards it.
I'll do it. I think we should go through one at a time.
Fair enough.
When the board was originally established, we had a 13-member board. It makes that difficult to get a quorum and people together when you've got that many. The request of the Open Space Committee would be to reduce that to 9. I'd say since we have them as each one thing, as you said, we should do one at a time, so if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. It's perfect. Makes
That would
sense.
be the first request right there, is changing the number of board members from 13 to 9. That does consist of the Parks and Rec Director, Planning Commission liaison, and a Township Board liaison, and then 6 residents in the community.
Any questions out in the audience? No? Online? No. I have a question. It's in red, so it's new to have a liaison from the Township Board, is that correct? I didn't think so, but it's in red, so I didn't know if,
No, that was always there. That could
Yeah.
be, as long as it's written in there, we're good with it.
yeah, I just didn't know if it
Right.
was, if we were using.
No, we had, that was always, I see what you're saying, the committee, what now? One shall be a member of the the Plan Commission. Yeah, I'm not sure why that,
So it just leads me to my next follow-up question to that. Is the red supposed to represent things that have changed, that are not in the previous? I mean, is everywhere else it's consistent that way? It just happens that you might have, I'm just trying to figure out what changed, if anything, in that one sentence, and do we extrapolate that all the way through?
I
Or interpolate, I guess would be. the
give
better term.
my thoughts here. I think that they struck the whole paragraph rather than strike what singular item, like from 13 to 9.
Yeah,
Instead of just striking that line with 13 and keeping the rest, rewrote the paragraph that shares the
Okay.
same spirit.
okay,
And I think that's consistent through the rest as well.
right.
okay,
Instead of changing just words, it's new blocks.
okay,
Yeah.
fair enough, I just want to make sure I understood.
It did change, though. It changed because the prior one said at least one, but no more than two shall be liaisons of the township board. So we are saying there's not gonna be two from the township board
Yes,
anymore.
you're
So it
correct.
did change.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very good.
okay. Anybody else have any other questions from the board? No? All right, can I get a motion then to approve the change from 13 to 9 with the change from, I don't know if that comes into that, I guess it's all, 'cause it's in that paragraph, to one member from liaison.
I recommend approval to reduce board members from 13 to 9 with liaison from the Planning Commission and Township Board, along with Parks and Rec Director.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Second one, please.
Okay, so the next one is basically because we've got the township officials also that are mandated to be on this board, that they've got scheduling conflicts with multiple boards meeting on the same Wednesday. So the board's requesting moving the meeting to the second Monday of the month instead of the second Wednesday. That way attendance can be had by the required township officials, can make it to the meeting without conflict.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Online? Any from the board? I just have one. I went back and I looked at the attendance, which is in part what you're doing, how many boards meetings had to be canceled because they couldn't get a quorum, which turned out to be about half. But I'm assuming that by moving it from Wednesday to Monday will help that out. My only question is that, does the committee need to meet each month?
Well, that's,
You know, I'm just wondering,
That's a-
with, I mean, we're moving it to try to get more people there so they can always have a quorum. I'm just wondering if we had a little bit less frequently, would that improve things? Was that given a thought?
I think that we had, there was, I mean, I was on this board too, so I'm speaking with both and helped set it up. I think that having a set monthly meeting and and then finding that you don't need a meeting is better than not having enough meetings to get what you want to have done. There has been discussion about the meeting less frequently than every month, but I don't, it hasn't come to fruition yet. The main point of this one is to get the Parks and Rec Director at the meeting. But I think that that's a conversation that can be had.
Okay.
Could you build it into this, that,
No, it's a new week. I'm the chair now, not Sam.
you recognize me?
Oh, no, Sam went like this, so I thought you meant Sam gave you
No, I
the
didn't
okay.
say anything.
Go ahead, Paul.
That's assault.
Like, hey, come on, come
Hit
on.
Paul like that.
All right. Treasurer Brown.
So, I would suggest that we just work something into how this is worded that would mean you're not required to have the meetings monthly,
But
but maybe,
when
maybe,
held.
maybe a minimum of quarterly, but when held, or something like that, or restructure that sentence. To not require the monthly meeting, but that it's, you can schedule it, but they're not required.
I'm gonna call it myself, instead of muddying things up,
Yeah.
if you guys discuss it and you wanna do it, then just bring it back to the board and we'll make an amendment at that time.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can just kinda keep
Yeah,
it.
get input from your board.
Well, I'd like to be able to get everybody to the board so they
Right.
can make a,
There you go.
Yeah, right.
All right,
make that
can I get a-
recommendation.
Can I get a motion, please?
Recommend approval to change meetings for ROAC to the second Monday of the month.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next one is to recommend the approval of the tax amendment. Sam?
Well, this one was, there's been much talk about what's the purpose, where do they want to go? It was a new group, some things have progressed, some things has lapsed. They've tried different things, tried to figure out what the needs of the township were. So I think there was an agreement that they wanted to tweak the general intent of the committee to be more specific to what they felt the needs were. And it's basically outlining the dedication and preservation of natural beauty, rural character, quality of life by protecting open space, natural resources, water quality, wildlife habitats. This will be accomplished by advising township leadership, educating the community, supporting passive recreation, securing funding and conservation partnerships, and promoting smart land use and zoning policies that ensure long-term environmental stewardship for the benefits of current and future residents. That's what the board cumulatively came up with as what they feel is a better reflection of the intent of the committee than what was currently there, which was still similar, but this has been tweaked.
Any questions or comments from the audience? You always put that new microphone and nobody's coming up and using it.
We'll find something.
Any questions or comments online? Okay. On the board, any questions or comments from the board? No? All right. Can I get a motion, please?
Recommend approval of the text amendment to the general intent of committee statement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next one, recommended approval of the 3 unexcused missing meetings requirement for members.
So, now whether or not, Dan, I don't know if this is a clean way of, I sent this to you. Basically, they want to have a mechanism of people who get on the board and then they don't participate, and they want to have a mechanism to go to the supervisor of the board and say, this person hasn't been fulfilling their obligations. We'd like you to consider reappointing somebody else that would be more active on the committee. So this 3 unexcused meetings was kind of the baseline to start with. If you just no-showed 3 times in a year, the committee itself could recommend that to the supervisor or to the township board that they request, consider replacing that person. So,
It's a very common term in many bylaws, and it's appropriate here. These board members do not have due process rights, so the removal does not involve any difficulty.
so is it okay the way we've stated in the
Yeah,
document?
it's fine. Yeah, I saw it.
Are we
Treasurer Brown?
we're talking about the virtual attendance piece?
No.
No, no.
No.
The one
Oh,
above
okay.
that.
No, the one above that.
Oh, I got you, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm good with it.
So that's the intent of it. 3 unexcused absence in a fiscal year triggers that potential request for replacement.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Anybody online? Any board comments? All right, can I get a motion, please?
I recommend approval that after 3 unexcused missed meetings in a fiscal year, the board may recommend by majority vote that they be replaced.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. Motion carried. Motion E, recommend approval of attending virtual in consideration of attending.
This is a reach, possibly, but it was an unknown, that's why we sent it to Dan to, I know legally there's some rules about virtual attending after COVID, and we weren't, they weren't sure how it worked, so they threw it in there as an option.
So it would not be appropriate for a decision-making board. This is a recommending board. In that sense, it's probably a gray area. I was comfortable with it if you wanted to attend, but this board really has no authority under state law or even our ordinances to make any final decisions. So in that sense, it's appropriate.
And
If you
there
want it
are
that
some
way.
very active members who vacation or, go down to Florida for a little while and they want to participate still. And that was what drove this, was could they still participate, whether as a voting member or a non-voting member, virtually? And would that meet the criteria of them having a quorum?
Well, you can set up your bylaws in this type of a committee, this type of a board, if you will. You can set up your bylaws to allow for that. Now,
Okay.
it's important that this not turn into a final decision-making board.
Right.
And what that means is that it's always recommending back to the township board, whatever action is taken, and whatever data, information, minutes, or discussions that were collected for purposes of that recommendation should be available to the township board. Otherwise, you can get yourself into an Open Meetings Act situation.
But as it's being operated now, just
Yes.
as a recommending body, doing research and making suggestions, that you would meet the criteria? That
Yes.
would be okay if the
We're talking-
status quo doesn't change?
Yeah, and we're talking specifically about attending electronically.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? Ironically, anybody online? No. Anybody on the board? Treasurer Brown?
So I was provided by the clerk's office, some highlighted things out of the Open Meetings Act, which would, if you were going to be very conservative, this would indicate that the Open Meetings Act's interpreted to require members of public bodies to be physically present at meetings held within a physical space, and that the OMA generally does not provide for remote attendance of a public body members or members of the public, except to accommodate the absence of a member of a public body due to member's military duty.
Yeah,
So-
that's the law as it relates to this board for sure, planning commission, ZBA matters.
So what did,
Decision-making, public body.
do you know if they define, I just don't want us, you're telling us we're not gonna be in trouble, and
Yeah, well, I do this on the assumption that there are no decisions being made. There's a recommendation from a group, if you will, of residents. There's no funding being provided to this group. The board has acknowledged this group, but there is no statutory authority. So in that sense, in my view, it's not considered for purposes of that Open Meetings Act a public body.
sounds good.
I just had one question in reading it. Are we changing the name as well?
Yeah, looks that way, doesn't it?
I saw that residential is struck, and if you are, maybe you want to make that part of the motion as well.
Before we get to that, does
Yeah.
anybody else have a comment or question about online?
No, I'm guessing that's the same reason we don't record those meetings, and there's no minutes that ever get approved from those. I don't believe either, do we? I've never seen them.
No, we
so
don't.
I don't think so, yeah,
Right.
so.
We
Okay.
do take minutes for
Sure.
the meetings, but they're not, we don't record the
Published.
meetings or any
Yeah.
of that,
I don't think they're published either, are they?
no.
No.
You provide,
Huh?
I thought you did,
Are they published at the end of our?
communications.
I'm pretty sure the clerk says, give me your minutes, so
Okay, I'm sorry.
she does to my advisory committee.
So I have an issue with this, and that is that there's no budget here, so how are you going to put it online? It's going to take resources in order to put it online. So how do you anticipate dealing with that? I mean, like right now, we got Elke sitting in the studio,
Right.
handling this, handling the teams and all that. And for any of those meetings, those types, there's a cost to it. And I think we look at the village of Clarkston, we figured out it's about $300 a meeting for them to go do their meeting.
Well, we don't want to do this.
Well, I understand you don't want to do it at this level, but I
All
mean,
we
if you're
did
gonna
last time is
participate.
somebody brought a laptop and the person was on the laptop at the meeting.
Okay,
And they did a,
Someone's Teams
a
account or
team-
something
yeah,
like
used their
that.
own Teams account and did it, Now, if it doesn't, if it's not feasible, then, and they don't check in, then they're not there. If, if they can't become virtual, it's a moot point.
yeah, no, it is.
If you can become, maybe we'll come back and ask for some virtual money, I don't know. But right now, your telephone, right, that's another one. You could be on a video call on your telephone to be at the meeting. So there is ways to do it without a cost to the township.
That's fine, you can turn the laptop on, I get that.
Yeah, and I think because it's for the convenience of the fellow members rather than like a public meeting in that regard. It's accommodating winter birds and people that are on the committee that otherwise can't be involved, but
Well, they can't watch it on YouTube, and they don't have a way of seeing it, so it's either live or it never happens for them to stay involved,
I guess my only big concern is that I'm probably old school for sure, is that I think just more gets done when you're face to face than when you're face to screen. And, it's just from a interaction standpoint and
Right.
everything else, talking over.
This isn't a substitute for being in place. This is just to allow board members who are not able to attend to be in attendance, formally be recognized at the meeting and be able to comment and say things, It's not, it's not for year-round use or,
Well, then, to that end,
Yeah.
if you would like my backing on this, I would say that there should be a limit to the number of times you can do it.
I would agree with that as well. I'm in the mindset that if we have a meeting and you're on board, you should be here as much as you possibly can, and if you can't be here, and I know that,
okay, well, what's a fair number? Even if they can't make 5 meetings and we say 3 is the max, at least it's 3 more meetings that they've got that
Well,
ability to be in there,
you've got a situation where you don't know how many meetings you're gonna have a year, right? So I would say once a quarter, 4 times a year, once a quarter.
or I was
But-
thinking in a similar vein, but maybe apply a cap per meeting, so you're not having quorum established online by a bunch of cell phones.
Sure.
So
But
both.
maybe you limit 2 people max may participate as voting virtual members or something like that.
Out of 9.
Out of 9, which is a nominal amount, you still have to have a minimum of 3 people in person to establish quorum.
So I like the idea of 3,
3 in person?
because that way you can at least get,
For quorum.
I'm thinking if you're doing
So you're saying
phones
you
and all
can have
that, it gets a little complicated. I don't know if you can, see, it shows you how not tech savvy I am. I don't know how many people you can get on your phone. So it would have to be computer to do the Teams. I guess you can do Teams on your phone, so you can get as many as you want. But I'm fine with that. I like 3 in person, and then I would say 3 meetings a year. If you can't make it more than, if you have to miss 3, I'm thinking about the snowbirds, January, February, March, usually they start coming back. I think if you go more than that, then people are gonna take advantage of
3
it.
times per year per board member can
Yep.
attend virtually, would that,
Yeah,
not to exceed 3 times a year per member?
yeah, and
to,
must have 3
to attend
physically
virtually?
present.
Does that?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I'm
then
good
if, then the other ones are blanketed under the 3 absent things and whatever,
Yeah.
but,
And these are gonna be people that really wanna be engaged,
Right.
like
Right.
go out of their way to get on a phone or a laptop, so,
Right.
they're doing it out of their love for participating at the end of the day.
So that's what we're, maximum 3 people on virtual, is what you're saying?
I was suggesting maximum of 2, so you can never establish
Maximum of 2.
quorum
Oh,
virtually.
Gotcha, yeah, I see.
And then per board member, or per committee member rather,
3
you
times.
would 3 max.
Does this include the elected officials? Is there a,
I don't even know if the,
you know what I'm saying? Dan? Does it, can
Yeah, I
you,
mean,
can
the
you,
bylaws
can you
would-
disqualify
so-
somebody from this? Like, say the elected officials can't participate in this
Yeah.
remotely, but
I mean, you're setting up the bylaws. I am actually considering this board as being a non-public board.
Right.
It's not, no tax dollars are being spent
Right.
on this board. It is effectively a group of residents, board members, set up and agreed to bylaws of participation. So in that sense, it's a pretty liberal interpretation of what you can and can't do.
Okay.
So, but the rules would apply to everybody across the board.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, let me see, I'll try to make the motion. Does somebody else have any other comments? No? Okay. I'll make a motion to allow virtual attending where it is a per member has a maximum of 3 times a year that they can do it virtually, and at any point in time of meeting, in order to have a quorum, they must have 7 physically present.
No, that's too many.
No?
No,
it's not?
a max of 2 virtual.
Yeah.
So you can have 3 and you can have a minimum of 3 physically to get
to a
quorum.
quorum of 5.
So you don't need 7 there. You
Quorum
need,
is a
Okay,
five.
yeah, I was, okay. doing
But a
math
limit of-
I would focus,
Thinking of
I would
full
focus,
board,
yeah,
okay.
focus on the virtual piece, and
Yeah.
we're there.
Okay. 3 maximum times per year per committee member, and then
Not to exceed 2.
not to exceed 2 virtual per meeting. Right, okay. Can I get a second, please?
Sport?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Let's get this shot.
I would like to talk about the name
Okay.
next,
Oh,
if
yeah.
that's all right, Mr. Supervisor. That has been something that's been brought up many times since I was on the committee and Jim's been on the committee. The word residential, attributes to, makes people think residential property. And the board wants, certainly wants to expand to all commercial, residential, all properties, and really just focus on open space.
When you say can you define it as the committee versus the board? Because when you're
Okay.
saying the board, then I'm
All right.
trying to remember whether we
All right.
did that or you
The
guys
committee.
did that. Okay, thanks. I'm getting confused, that's all.
Okay.
I gotta take minutes
All
here,
right.
so.
Well, they would like to be the Open Space Advisory Committee, which would just cover all the township's property and not make it sound like they're only interested in residential preservation. Doesn't really change anything, but it makes it a little bit more specific.
All right, somebody want to make a motion towards that?
I will move to change the name from Residential Open Space Advisory Committee to the Open Space Advisory Committee.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. OSPAC? Is that what it's going to be called now? OSPAC?
Or OSAC.
OSAC. Yeah, OSAC, that sounds better than O. Okay. All right, anything else on that? Not? Let's move on. Last thing on the agenda is a discussion regarding the special rules for the Board of Trustee members. This is one that I brought forward. This is just a discussion. There's not going to be any motion taken on it. There was some conversation I watched. I tried very, very, very hard to get back here on the last board meeting, so I apologize to the board and the residents that I was not able to do it. I missed it by that much. But during that time, we watched through it. There was a segment in there where Trustee Hayward brought up the special rules, asked the question, what are the special rules, as far as not, where do they place? Are they rules? Are they recommendations? What are they? I thought that was a great question, and then things kind of got moved on a little bit from there. I don't know if it ever really got answered. There was some motion made that was in contradiction to the rules, so I just thought that maybe we should all come back, take a look at this, and decide, do we as a board want to adopt these as rules, or do we want to treat them as recommendations? And again, this is just kind of an open kind of forum to talk about this. So does anyone on the board have a thought on it?
I'll start. My understanding that absent any other name, these are bylaws. And I believe that's what Mr. Kelly had generically, we can call them rules, we can call them procedures, but they are bylaws. and doing my homework since the last meeting, bylaws, it's customary, if not proper, for bylaws to be changed or modified with a minimum of 2/3 and in some cases a 3/4 vote of the entirety of the board, not so that's my understanding of the bylaws. So I was pretty off-put last time when I saw that these were buried in the consent agenda, because I do deem these as less than advisory. I do look at these as bylaws. My opinion, I believe, affirmed by Mr. Kelly. And so, that being said, I think it is critical that any changes do adhere to a 2/3 majority of the board. And, any discussions about the content from that point, we can have. But that's basically my position and my understanding, that this is a document that is not only worthy of being followed, that it should be followed.
I'm not going to address the validity of the motion, because that's not really what we're trying to discuss here. We're trying to discuss, are these rules that we're going to follow, or are they suggestions? Bylaws, the attorney can get up and speak. There are, in the private sector, I don't know if it is the same in the government, but bylaws are things that you're supposed to follow for sure, but there's always ways around the bylaws. And so, to me, I'm looking at this is the intent to be, yes, we're going to follow it rigidly, or is it, these are the really strong recommendations to use going forward as a guideline? Because in here, the Rule 30 that was brought up, things were put out there the way they were supposed to. They were not maybe handled the best way, and I won't even dispute that. So we don't even need to go down that road. I'm going to be in agreement. But it did follow the rule. There's also rules in here that says a simple majority can suspend all the rules. So, you're making a rule that says 2/3 or 3/4, if that's what it is true, the board decides to do. But yet we have Rule 24 that says that these things can be set aside with a simple majority. They're not in alignment with each other. And that's where, that's what the conversation I want to have about these are. What are the intent with these? What does the board want to do with them? And then also, I don't recall any conversation about this last year. Last year being the first year, right? Because one of the things that says that, and at the election of a new board, these things can come up for conversation, to decide if there's going to be any tweaking to it or not. I didn't know about them, because I didn't know what I didn't know back then. I don't think anybody brought them forward. So, I don't know if these are applicable now. Things change. It's been 10 years. I guess there was an amendment in 2022, but times are changing. I think that what would make sense, and again, I'm just talking here, is that, we reevaluate these rules and decide again, are they going to be something that we're all going to adhere to and have, a lack of a better term, a letter of understanding, and saying, yes, we're going to treat them like rules and we're going to abide by them? And if so, then are these all exactly in the language that we think this board thinks they should be? I think we need to pull that, I think we missed the opportunity last year, pull it back up this year. I don't think there's any harm or any foul with doing that. And then just go through, and all those other aspects of it, right? The stuff that went on consent, that there was disagreement about the placement of it, and then there was disagreements about some of the actual items, that those can be hashed out and discussed at that point in time. But it doesn't seem to me to make much sense to go through and have a lengthy conversation about the MAFs that were addressing this if we're going to treat this as a recommendation. Trustee Morocco.
I'm in favor of having some hard rules.
I agree.
I think that this township, from what I've seen in the last 20 years, has a lack of understanding of the rules and procedures that boards should follow. It's been, in my opinion, like it or not, seems like things just progress, happen. Some people have been here longer, so people lean on them for the answer. They don't actually know the answer, but they think they do, so it sounds good when you hear it. How would you dispute it if you don't know? Lots of turnover between supervisors, trustees. Nobody knows, and this is discussions we've had behind the scenes with each other about trying to get a full understanding of what are the rules so we can all play by them, you know? And if you know the rules, then you can, it's a fair fight for everybody that wants to fight for what they want. When you don't know the rules, that's a problem. And there's way too much gray area in who's got what authority over who oversees what, who can, what, you know, how far reaching can each of the board members, do we have equal power? This whole thing is, I think it's a time that I've noticed in the township for, and I know the supervisor's been looking into having someone kind of explain to, you know, we need to be educated as board members what the parameters are of our duties and how far we can each go with what our powers are, so that it's fair and everyone has an understanding. So I think that it's an important document, and I base that on a lot of reasons, but one of them being that the stipulation that was put in there, the intent of them, saying that you had to put any proposed changes a meeting before you acted on them, would tell me that the intent of this document was that it was an important document, that you couldn't willy-nilly show up at a meeting, have a, you know, majority vote and just start changing the rules. That's why it says you have to bring stuff up a meeting before you act, you know? So that kind of was gave me the impression it was kind of important when someone drafted it. You know, if, I do think that anything that important should require a 2/3 vote, not just a supermajority, and it should be of how many people are on the board, not just who shows up that night. These are all protections, in my opinion, not just for our board, but for all the boards, you know, so that everyone understands what the rules are. And as long as we all know the rules, I think it's gonna take a lot of, some of the hostility, if you wanna say it that way, or tension is a better way of saying it. Because we have been, in the past year, been questioning what are the powers of everybody and and how do we perform. Now, I think we should then go through, in my opinion, and everybody take notes and we get back to convene. And, you know, that's one thing I wish, that when the changes were presented, that someone, you know, that we would have all been asked, like, hey, we're thinking about revisiting the rules and procedures. Does anyone have any issues, you know, suggestions? And we could have collaboratively done it before this, but we're at this point now, so now's the time, you know, in my opinion.
Which is why I'm bringing it up in this format now.
Right, well,
Right? So non-action taken, just have a conversation about it
Okay.
so we can understand.
I agree.
And come up with the process to move forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that obviously this document is important, and I wanted to get the feeling of the rest of the board 2 weeks ago. Is this important? Because it was important enough that we made changes, but not important enough to have as a regular agenda item. I don't know how it got on there. It really doesn't matter, but the reason that this document exists is, if you look through Robert's Rules, and Robert's Rules of Order is the common, we'll say Bible, and if you've ever looked at it, it's as big as a Bible, how organization and how the order should be for meetings and for this purpose. And in section 49, it talks about small boards, which we are, a small board. And in that small board section, it recommends that you have special rules of procedure for your meeting, because a small board is a lot differently than Congress, Senate, whatever, and, you know, some of these where there's a lot of people that want to talk. So that's why this was created, and oddly enough, that Rule 30, the reason that was created was, under Robert's Rules, it suggested that, well, previous notice is required if you want to adopt or amend special rules with only a majority vote, when those rules limit a member's rights, raise voting thresholds, restrict debate, motions, or participation, change procedural protections. So what Robert Rules says, if you don't want to give a notice, then you have to have 2/3 votes. So obviously, if we don't follow some kind of rules, it's just wild, wild west. I can say whatever I want. I can talk as much as I want, because Who's gonna say you can't do that? And how are you gonna point to what I can or can't do? And oddly enough, I went and called the person who put this together, which was Barb Pilata, and I spoke to her yesterday and why she put it together. And the reason being was because, so we had some control or some kind of guidelines on the board on how we should operate our meetings. And I like having rules, and I like being able to point back to say, how should we be doing this? Because we, again, Chuck and I are relatively new to this, and then we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. I know in Green Township, they had a complete changeover of their entire board. So how do they go ahead moving forward? And, I always like to leave a kind of a succession plan for the next people that are coming up too. And that's exactly why Barb created this, by the way, which was, and I have the actual, all the motions in here too, by the way. I looked them all up of when this was passed, when it was amended, and the purpose for it. And Clerk Pilata presented this item to bring more order to the agenda packet process. She explained that there's much wasted time spent in preparing agenda items. And then it goes on to talk about Robert's rules. It talks about, she explained the reason that meetings of governing bodies follow parliamentary procedures to allow them to expedite business, ensure legality, and to protect the rights of the minority. And Robert's rules is the only form of parliamentary procedure. And I'm not gonna read all of it, but, so I basically said all that to think that I think these rules are important, and that maybe we should have a study session to sit down even and discuss them, and not, prior to a meeting, so we can discuss it and then have those changes put on the meeting as we decide that we wanna do.
With the full board.
With a full board, absolutely.
Any other comments down here? Okay. As trustee Morocco alluded to or said, that I am looking, I tried calling the MTA, Michigan Township Association, they're a big organization that helps with all the townships, and asked them if they had a facilitator that could come. And I was thinking about having each of the different positions here, trustee, clerk, treasurer, supervisor, have them come in and discuss at different meetings, each one just focusing on the one, to come in and explain in a forum like this, so even the residents can understand what exactly the roles are and the boundaries of our abilities. So they unfortunately said they do not have anyone that can do it. All their things are online, and that doesn't really address what I really would like to do. I think there's an opportunity here for all of us to get either a refresher or some education, and I think it's extremely important that the residents get that opportunity as well, because sometimes they're a little bit, what seems to be rational doesn't always turn out to be rational in government. So, they have these perceptions sometimes that we have abilities to do things that we can't. And I think it's important for them to understand that limitation as well. So I am continuing to look. So if anybody here on the board has any recommendations or anything else, or if the attorney has anyone that he knows, a third party that can come in and do that, that'd be great. I would suggest that we would do something like bring them in, have the conversation, maybe have we have an agreement, to that until such point in time is that we can get through this process, that we will all honor the intent of this document here. And because I would think that it was going to take about maybe 4 meetings, and then have a meeting, once we get through where we all understand each of our individual lanes, if we will, then we can sit down and address this document and say, okay, based on what we know now, maybe this is good, maybe that's bad, maybe this needs to be changed, or this is perfect, leave that exactly the way it is. And in that point in time, we can then come back and ratify or justify this document and use it going forward. I think that if we try to put that cart in front of the horse, which is putting this and saying, let's address this now without quite understanding exactly where our roles, our lanes are, I think we could be doing ourselves a disservice and have to come back and modify it again. Trustee Morocco.
So most of the changes were procedural changes that we can argue whether we think they're appropriate or not. The one change that was specific was the fee schedule for the special meeting, and at the meeting, I questioned whether it was even appropriate that this be the document that be in. Because if we are, as of right now, I think that we could probably come up with a consensus that we're gonna honor this document the way it's currently written, not amended, but that leaves that special meeting thing hanging out there. And I, you know, I guess the question would be, is, where can we just, where else can we plug in the special meeting thing besides this document? Because it is more fluid, with fee changes and things happening, that maybe instead of this document, but yet, let's get that addressed so we're not hanging out if someone asks for it,
Okay.
and we haven't done it yet.
So I know we've had conversations, you can please come up. I don't know if we want to make that necessarily an ordinance, but
Yeah, well,
The options.
specifically with regard, I understand trustee Morocco's concern that it's in our bylaws. I guess I look at it as being, once it's adopted by the board, it can be enforceable, and that it would be our planning department that would let people know that we're going to charge it. So whether it's in this document or by a separate resolution, you could do it either way. It probably doesn't perfectly fit into what I consider special rules or bylaws to that extent. So it's up to you. I mean, all you really have to do is make a motion that says we're going to establish a fee for any special meetings that are requested by the developer.
And that would be in this document, right?
It could be in this
Well, it doesn't
document, or it
have to
could just
but
be a
I see what
separate
you're saying,
motion,
right.
yeah.
Because like we already discussed, this document is, you just change your mind and vote it out and say, we're
You just-
not gonna have the fee.
Yeah, I
Right,
mean,
so-
well, it's always going to be, up to the board or a
Right.
majority of the board as to
Okay.
whether it's in or not.
Take a policy.
Treasurer,
So the board can just adopt a policy on those, right?
Right.
So, I mean, that's something I think we should get that off of our plate in the interim,
Well,
I try to, the policy about the special meeting things, but there's discussions that need to happen on that.
Well, I think that,
Also.
right, well, when I'm looking at this document, I think that under special meetings, it should be, if this is the policy of the board, is to want it to charge and all these things that came up, that they should somehow be put in this document. So, again, board members that don't know, they see this and go, oh, wow, we're supposed to be charging, if somebody wants to come and request a special meeting, they should be charged. Now, they have the actual dollars amount in there? Probably not, because you don't want to be updating this document every single time something changes.
I
but-
think we can just allude to it in this document,
Right.
can't we?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
you-
absolutely.
And you could do it very similar to the
footnote.
cost recovery, you could do a resolution that updates
Yeah.
the actual amount being charged.
But I think it's important to put in, at least to direct the, as far as the rules for special meetings, that this is part of that,
Yeah.
or can be part of it, depending on how the special meeting's requested.
So I like the idea of knowing that when I leave the second inning and go into the third inning, the rules are going to be the same. So I would be in favor of that as well. I know that trustee Hayward has actually started going down that path to come up with a resolution. It's a little lengthy, so I think it's something that probably just needs to be discussed a little bit, and I think we can probably get that on the next agenda. That way it gives everybody here at the board and the public a chance to review it. We can make any changes that are necessary, and like you said, check that one off. And in the meantime, still continue down that road of trying to get somebody to come in and facilitate the education aspect of things. I do know that, and I would encourage all of you, there's a MTA meeting in April up in Traverse City. I went through the classes today. There are things here definitely that start to address some of the things that we're talking about. The board has a budget for these types of things now, so I would encourage all of you to look at it and try to attend if you can. Any other comments or thoughts on this?
It's a good start.
Okay.
I didn't hear you, what your thoughts were on it.
This?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it, okay, and again, I will tip my hand a little bit, I'm not even opposed to the motion that was made, the 2/3 or whatever, supermajority. I'm not even opposed to that. Procedurally, I have an issue with it, how it was brought about, but the motion itself is fine. And that really comes down to how are we gonna treat this? Because that has to be defined first and foremost before we figure out how we deal with that actual motion. So that's why, tonight I just wanted to get an understanding, get it out there. It sounds like we are in agreement, minus the two absentees, that, you know, we're going to treat this honorably as the rules going forward until we can, I don't want to say codify, but I mean, until we can actually get through, clean it up to the where we all agree, and then make it hard and fast. And I think, again, the idea here directionally is to have the education, somebody come in and facilitate the training on what a trustee is, a clerk is, a supervisor and a treasurer is, and how it relates to the board meetings, because there's some lines there that are a little different too, but have everybody get an understanding. I'd like to make it part of the public forum, like here, so that the audience and everybody else can tune in, and it'll be recorded, and therefore we can look back over posterity and say, okay, yep, that was right, and so on and so forth. Hopefully we can get that done soon. Like I said, I tried today to get the MTA, they said no. So again, if you know of anybody, some of you who've been here a little bit longer, maybe you know of an organization or something like that that can do that. I think it's money well spent. Again, like I said, you know, take it down a few notches, and I think if we all understand the rules, I think we'll play fine. You know, the issues I see with it and I watch is that the rules just, we're not 100% sure, each of us, we each have our own set of rules in our minds. And there's a large overlap, which means for the most part, we agree. It's just when we don't, we don't. And that's where we need to get cleaned up. Any other parting comments on this? No? Okay. Then, closed session, we don't have any. Communications for future agenda items. The Building Department, December 2025, had a report, and Oakland County Sheriff's Office, December 2025, has a report. And at this point, I would like to open up to the board for any parting comments.
I have one. I'd like to thank Mr. Pilata for his 8 years on the Safety Path Committee. To serve on a committee or a board you have to really be passionate about it, because, you know, especially after 8 years to do that, you know, that's quite a commitment. And, you know, we have a lot of committees and boards, and we have people that come and serve, and they take a lot of their time. They put a lot of effort into what they're doing, and they come prepared. And the times that I've seen Mr. Pilata on that board, that I served with him on, that he's done a wonderful job, and I just want to thank him for his service of the 8 years, and just tell him I appreciate that, you know, thank him and appreciate him serving our community as he has.
Very nice. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, then I would like to get a motion to adjourn, please.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor, or second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting closed.